Hey folks, I'm Jack Watson, UI UX designer, illustrator, animator, and as always, your donut connoisseur. And we're looking at patterns and graphic styles today in the context of Memphis-style designs. And to get started, there's going to be links in the description below this video where you can download your free resources to create along with us. You're going to want to download that file and open it up in Illustrator. There's not a lot going on in our starter file today. I do have some color palettes that I set up for you down here. If you want to use those, if you're creating your own, you're going to want a good mix of lighter and darker values. You can see we've got some lighter colors and some darker colors over here to have good contrast in your pattern. Memphis style, I've got some notes at the top here. Some of the tools we're going to be using, and then a little bit more detail about Memphis-style design, its origins, and if you want to learn a little bit more. But it's a good way to learn about patterns and graphic styles in Illustrator due to the mix of repetitive elements, textures, geometric shapes. But like I said, if you want a little bit more information about this postmodern art style, feel free to go ahead and read through this, and you can do some research on your own. But to get started, we're going to be working a lot with the swatches panel today. So over here, I've got the Essentials Classic workspace under Workspace Essentials Classic. So you should see the swatches panel, but if you don't see any of the windows that I've got open here, they're all in the window drop-down at the top in the menus drop-down here. You can see they're all named. So I've got swatches. The check mark next to it is going to indicate that it's open, so you just need to find it on your screen. You can click on it to open it up and make sure you've got it open. And then from there, so we've done some challenges in the past on making your own patterns, but I wanted to take a minute to show you maybe a little bit of a hidden feature inside of Illustrator if you didn't know about this. It's a little bit hard to find, but there are some built-in, not only color swatch libraries, but pattern swatch libraries in Illustrator. So if we click on this little hamburger menu to open it up, and we scroll down to Open Swatch Library, I know it's a little bit convoluted, it's a little bit buried. You're going to find all of these color swatch libraries. We've got one down here called Patterns that we're going to be taking a look at. And the ones I like to use are actually this basic graphics one here. So if you navigate down again, Open Swatch Library, we're going to navigate to Patterns and then Basic Graphics. And we're going to open all of these. So when I click on this, Basic Graphics Dots, it's going to open up a new kind of like panel for us, a little individual panel there. And then I'm just going to go through real quick and repeat that process. And we're going to open up all of these basic patterns here. We're going to go into Patterns, Basic Graphics, and we're going to open up Lines. And then we're also going to go in and open up, doing this one more time, Basic Patterns, Basic Graphics. They call it Basic Patterns, but it's Basic Graphics under Patterns. And we're going to open up Textures. Now you can see here, mine are pretty large, so it's a little easier to see the details in here so you know what you're picking. If yours open up, and I think they open up by default in the small thumbnail view. So if you're having a hard time seeing what the actual textures are, if you click on this little menu here, the little hamburger menu inside of the actual windows that pop up, you can change to large thumbnail view, and that's going to give you a larger view of your patterns. And that's really helpful for ones like these that are using a lot of geometric shapes and small elements, some cross-hatching and stuff like that in here. And just so you're aware, anywhere you see white in these particular panels is going to be the artboard, or it's going to be transparent. There's no white in these swatches. There's just the black dots, and then the white is transparency. So it's probably easier to demo than to talk about it. So to get started, we need to add a background, and I have gone ahead and set up your your color swatches over here in the swatches panel, so you can just kind of grab them quickly, or you can use the eyedropper. So to get started, you're probably going to have the default fill and stroke, which is this white fill and this black stroke. And we're going to pick the rectangle tool. So dropping down into whatever shape you have active, you're going to want to grab the rectangle tool here. And I'm just going to drag it out to kind of fill the artboard. The artboard is going to contain our entire file export when we're done here, so you just want to make sure that you're filling edge to edge the artboard with your rectangle. And then we're going to go over here, and we're going to go ahead in the swatches panel or underneath. There's this little slash icon, red slash. That's going to be none. That'll set our stroke color to none. We don't want a stroke color. And then I'm going to click to bring the fill color to the front, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to pick one of our swatches. We're going to pick the darkest color here. You could also grab the eyedropper if you prefer, and you can just eyedrop, you know, click on these various colors if you wanted to. It's really kind of up to you. All right, so we've got a background color. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to duplicate this shape. So we're going to use Command C and Command or Control C, depending on what operating system you're on. Command or Control C. And then Command or Control F, that's going to copy my shape and then paste it directly in front. So it's not going to look like anything has really happened here yet, but I've made a copy. If I drag this out, you're going to see that I've got a second shape here. Also, hello to everybody in the chat we've got over on YouTube and on Behance. I see Sneon, I see Sean, I see Kevin, Roberts, all the usuals, Becky. Welcome in, everybody. Feel free to go ahead and say hi. So in my pattern swatches here, I'm just going to go ahead and pick one of these. So we'll start with some of the dots, and maybe we'll go with like the second one here. And we can't see them because they're black. So currently I don't have very good color contrast. So this is what I was talking about when I said make sure that the colors that you pick have good contrast. So if we have a dark color, we're going to pick lighter colors for the stuff that kind of goes over top. And when I clicked on that, if I zoom in, you can kind of see our patterns applied. And it also added it to our swatches. So let's say we don't like, you know, this black color and we want to change it to be something that shows up better. We can edit our pattern swatch just by double clicking it in the swatches panel. And when you do that, you're going to see, you know, we've talked about the pattern options before, but it's going to open this little tile. It looks like a blue box with some guides, and it's got all of our pattern artwork in here. So if we edit this at all, we move it around. Right now I've got, I think move art with tile, but if we check that off and we move it around, we can make some edits to this pattern. But we are going to focus on changing the color right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I select all of the artwork. If you zoom in, you can see the artwork that's actually repeating is in full transparency. It's fully opaque. And all of the copies are dimmed to 50% currently. So I want to make sure that I'm just selecting all of that, and then we can pick one of our colors. So we can go with a lighter color. We can go with like a lighter blue, or maybe this pink. It's maybe easier for you to see what's going on here if I choose the pink. But we're going to pick a lighter color. And then once we're done, we're happy with the color we picked. Up at the top, you got a couple options here. If you hit done, done is going to overwrite your pattern swatch. So it's going to change the pattern swatch that's in there currently. If for whatever reason you were working on something that had the same pattern and you had multiple color variations, you could go ahead and hit save copy up here, and that's going to keep your original in a non-destructive edit. So you're going to have that original with the original color, and you're going to make a copy, so you'll make a second swatch. So it's really kind of up to your workflow. In this case, we're not working with this pattern yet in multiple forms, so we're just going to hit done and overwrite it. So there we go. Now we can actually see our pattern. It's a little bit more clear. But it is very, very small. If we zoom out, it does get very like condensed. So we want to scale the pattern. But we don't necessarily want to scale the artwork with it. So our rectangle, we don't want to change the size of our rectangle. It fits our artwork perfectly. So we're going to go up to Object, Transform, and we're going to choose Scale. So all of the transform options under Object Transform are very similar to the ones you would use with the selection tool. You know, normally we'd scale with the selection tool, we'd rotate with the selection tool, that kind of thing. But we can also do it from here. So if we click scale, you'll notice by default, it's set to scale 300. Let's go back to 100. So this is what it looks like normally. And if I go in, you're going to want to change this under uniform. If you go into non-uniform and you start scaling, so we do like 500, it's going to stretch that. So it's going to stretch that horizontally. And we don't actually want to do that. We want to scale uniformly because we've got circles. We want them to stay circles. So we're going to do something like 300. And currently it's scaling the entire rectangle. So you can see that my artwork is now expanding beyond the artboard because the rectangle itself is scaling up. In order to control that, we're going to uncheck this option here that says Transform Objects. We're going to leave Transform Patterns turned on. So these options in here allow you to turn on or off what you're scaling. If you want to just change the scale of the object and you don't want to transform the pattern, so it would look something like this, where the artwork is now scaling and the pattern is staying consistent, it's going to depend on what you're using this for. So in this case, I want to just transform the pattern, and I'm going to leave the object alone. All right, so then we're going to hit OK. That thumbnail trick is genius. Yeah, thanks. I'm glad you like it. That was a very handy one because those are so small to see, honestly. All right, so we're going to now, I think, add some shapes to this. So we've got kind of a background going. We've got some texture. I'm going to go into my shapes panel again. Clicking and holding is going to give me all my various shape options. And we're going to switch to the polygon tool. We're going to add some triangles. Vlad and Luna Darkness, welcome in over on YouTube. I'm going to click on the polygon tool, and when I drag with the polygon tool, I'll actually reset this to the default fill and strokes. It's easier to see on this background. And when I drag this out, you're going to see I can create polygonal shapes. So if we use the up and down arrows, we can control how large or how many number of sides, how many sides we get on this. So as I increase, I'm going to get more sides. As I decrease, I'm going to get fewer sides, all the way down to our triangle, which is going to have 3 sides. So if you keep hitting the down arrow, eventually you'll get there. And normally I would hold down Shift, which is going to constrain my shape to be kind of like 90 degrees, perfectly straight. But in this case, with this style of art, I'm going to go ahead and just freeform it because I want this to have a little bit of personality. So I'm not gonna hold down Shift for this. That's also kind of why I'm using the up and down arrows, because I have the hand free. If you were using something like, if you were holding down Shift, sometimes it's easier to just scale your object up. And then if you zoom in, sometimes it's a little bit hard to find. But there's a little diamond shape on your bounding box. Here it is. And if you drag this up and down, you can edit the number of sides kind of after the fact as well. So if you drag that little diamond shape in the corner, you can adjust up or down the number of sides. But I'm going to leave it as is. Now, we've been using the selection tool. If we switch to the direct selection tool, we can actually select individual points. So thus far, we've been selecting the whole object. And with the direct selection tool, if I click on each of these corners, I can select either multiple by holding down Shift, or a single point by just clicking and just clicking on the point. And I can click and drag, so I can kind of drag this out and give it a more like funky shape, more personality. We're going to kind of make it a little bit less even, less symmetrical. So, all right, so we've got our shape down here. Let's style it. So we're going to add a bunch of geometric shapes. It's very common in this style of art, but I kind of want to get everything set up and styled. And then I want to use that style on all of the shapes that I make in the future to keep everything consistent. So what I'm going to need to make sure that I do is I'm going to be using my appearance panel. So over here, you can see the appearance panel is already kind of open. Again, you can find it in the window dropdown. But here I can kind of add onto my shape a whole bunch of effects or additional fills or additional strokes and things like that. And then I can save all of that information as a graphic style. So over here, you can see there's some default graphic styles kind of in Illustrator that you can play with, but we're going to create our own appearance panel kind of stack. We're going to save that so we can apply it to different shapes. So to get started, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to apply, let's make sure, I'm fine with the white for now for the inside of the shape. I'm going to change the stroke color to be that darker color, and then either in the stroke panel down here or up in the control bar up here, you can use the up and down arrows to increase the weight of the strokes. We're going to give it a little bit more weight. That's going to help differentiate it from the background. You can see it has a little bit of a border to help separate it from the background there. Bruce is saying, oh no, triangles. Yeah, it's okay. Today it's okay. Today we're okay with triangles. And we're going to add kind of an offset shape to this. So there's a couple ways you can go about doing this. You can go in the appearance panel here, and if I click on my fill, I'm going to add my fill, this effect to my fill color. So it's going to add either an additional fill or a drop shadow, which is what we're going to use. So if we go into effects, you could use a distort and transform and use a transform to kind of duplicate the shape. But since I want this to have kind of a different color, it's going to be, easiest to do this using a drop shadow. So I'll show you what I mean. So we're going to go into Stylize, Drop Shadow. It's going to open up a little window for us, and I believe settings are set something like this. There's a multiply. Typically, when you have a drop shadow, you want to have some transparency kind of below the shape. You're adding something that you want to be darker, right? So it's going to be set to multiply mode by default. It's going to have some degree of transparency so you can see the background through. It's got a blur usually on it. You can see I was playing with this, so I'll try to get it back to how it might look on your screen. So you're gonna see kind of through the background, right? A multiply is a darkening blending mode, so it's gonna darken against the background that's applied over top. And that transparency is the opacity being set to 75 is gonna let some of the background show through. In this case, we're gonna go ahead and set our multiply to, or our mode to none. We don't wanna have any kind of blending mode applied to this because we just want a solid fill color. And then in that same sense, we're gonna change the opacity to be 100%. I'm gonna leave the X and Y for now. We also don't want to blur, so a blur is gonna soften the edge. In this case, I want a hard edge so that it kind of looks like an offset shape is behind my triangle. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit 0, so there's not gonna be any blur. And it's still kind of hard to tell what's going on, but once I add the color, you're gonna kind of see what this is looking like. So if I click on color, it's actually gonna open up our color picker. And if you want to, you could go in here and kind of pick a color this way. If you're working with swatches though, or you want to work with the swatches that we created, I'm going to click on color swatches, and it's actually going to pull them all up from my whole document. It can be a little bit overwhelming since this is every swatch color in my whole document, but if you just kind of scroll down to the bottom here, you'll get to that set that I made at the bottom. You can see they're even in kind of order. We've got the pink, we've got the lighter pink, we've got the darker color. So these, are going to be the swatches from that set that we created. And we can go ahead and pick one of these colors. Let's pick like this darker blue here. And now you can see it's maybe a little bit hard. Let's increase the offset and the X and Y offset, and you'll be able to see it a little bit better. So I'm just going to increase this. So now you can see that I've got kind of a solid shape behind my triangle. So I'm creating this offset on my shape. Yes, the Jack lore is happening in the chat about triangles. So I'm just going to increase, so the X and Y are related to like a coordinate axis. So the X axis is going to be horizontal and the Y axis is going to be vertical. So increasing and decreasing these numbers is going to change the position either horizontally or vertically. So if I want to increase the vertical distance, I'm using my arrows again. I'm not typing anything in to increase the vertical distance. And then I want to pull this back a little bit. So I'll use the down arrows again to pull back the horizontal distance again to kind of create that shape that's underneath. We're gonna hit OK. I'm gonna increase the stroke weight a little bit more as well, because I think that looks better. All right, so we've got, ooh, you know what? Actually, it looks like my drop shadow didn't change. So I'm gonna click on my shape again. The nice thing about using the appearance panel is it's very easy to go in and edit that drop shadow. So if for some reason I'm not happy with the way that looks, I can drop into that fill where I see that drop shadow listed attached to that fill color. I'm going to click on it, and then I can adjust these values again. So we'll pull back on the X offset again and hit OK. So now that we've got this set up, we need to add this as a graphic style so we can apply it to our other shapes. So this part is super easy. We're going to go to our graphic styles panel, and all we have to do here to add it is click on this little plus at the bottom. And when I click on that plus, it's going to add the shapes or the appearance stack as like a preview in my appearance panel. So you can see here, there's the blue shape that we can see the drop shadow. There's the stroke and the fill, so we can see that going on. So it's easy to see the a preview of what that's going to do. So if Vlad's got a question, any option to change the drop shadow, have a different shape than the original one. If you wanted to do something like that, Vlad, it's a little bit more complicated. You would have to add the second shape using the effects. So if we go into the appearance panel down here in effects, you can use convert to shapes. You can add a second shape, and then you would use the distort and transform. You would use the transform option to move that shape. So it would be a little bit of a different process in how you go about doing that, but it's definitely possible to create kind of like two different shapes and have them offset from each other using the appearance panel. Now keep in mind that that will affect the next part of this that we're going to do. So we've got our triangle. Let's say we want to apply this this graphic style to a different shape. So if we're gonna we'll go over here and we'll go into our drop down menu, and we'll grab a circle and ellipse, and we will hold down Shift to drag out a circle here, put it kind of next to our shape. And then all I have to do in order to apply that graphic style to this is click on the graphic style in that panel. So we created a circle, we were easily able to kind of apply it, and now it's consistent, it matches the other. And if we wanted to change the colors around, since I know that's going to be your next question, this is, we've got our white fill and our kind of like darker color stroke. We could go in here and we can just apply the fill color that way. And then if you wanted to change the drop shadow color, very similarly, once you apply the appearance attributes from the graphic styles. All you have to do is open up that fill again, click on that drop shadow, and you can go in here and you can change, the color to maybe you want a green instead. Hit OK. Who knows? It's pretty easy to customize all that stuff. So this is maybe where having two different shapes would be a little bit more complicated. It depends on, if you draw a second shape, it might not fit with the shape, but you could do it. And we got another question: can you apply styles to live text? Yes, you can. We've done graphic styles before with type. I don't know how well it's going to work here, but we'll give it a go. But so you can see here, it did apply that shadow to my text, and it added that heavier stroke and that fill, just like my shapes. There we go. All right, so now it's time to get into patternception. So we've got patterns. We need to make a pattern of our shapes on top of our pattern. So to do that, we're going to use there's a number of ways you can do this, but today we're going to use a repeat grid. So we're going to object, we're going to go to repeat, and we're going to choose grid. So I'm going to do this with both of those objects selected. When I do that, it's actually going to give me a little preview about what this is going to look like. And to get started, what I like to do is just grab these large kind of handles here and make sure that they fill my artboard. So I like to just kind of make sure, and they can go kind of a little bit beyond my artboard, because when I export, it's actually just going to contain my artwork to that artboard. So I don't worry too much about, what's going on kind of outside. So now I've got this kind of filling. We can also grab these they're double arrows at the top and the left. Dragging these out is going to expand the space. So I can adjust kind of the spacing of this and make them a little bit farther spaced out if I wanted to. The other thing that I really like to do with this, and this is going to be kind of personal preference, is I like to go to Object, Repeat, and into the options. And in here we could do a little bit of offsetting. So if we wanted to change kind of how these offset, or maybe we wanted to flip them like alternating either vertically or horizontally, you can turn on and off these options to try out different things kind of with your pattern to kind of get it how you want it to look. I like using the offset, particularly for this style of artwork. I think it works really well. It has a little bit of an organic kind of look to it. We're gonna hit OK, and then after that, I do need to make some adjustments. You can see that I'm getting cut off on the top and the left, so I'm just gonna drag this up to the top of my artboard and make sure that everything kind of fits. Again, dragging this down, I'm gonna just make sure that I'm covering every aspect of my artboard with my pattern. All right, so the last thing that I'm gonna add to this, I think, because we're running out of time, is gonna be to add, what's the name of the styles pattern again? Hold on, we got a question from Umacorn. This is Memphis-style or Memphis design. It's got a number of names, but you can see I've got some notes over here about it. It's from the Memphis design group in like you might recognize it from like the 80s or 90s. So if you want to look up more kind of examples or references of that style, you can. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to switch to the rectangle tool this time. I'm going to drag out a rectangle. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to remove my stroke, and we're going to layer just more patterns into this because that's a huge part of the style, right? We're going to go to our lines this time, and we're going to apply some lines. Again, it's going to be in black, so we're going to need to change the color so we can see it a little bit better. So again, double clicking on the swatch over here, I'm going to pick a lighter color so we can see it. So I'm going to make sure that I select all of my lines, just drag across my pattern. You can see this time it's going to be a stroke, so I'm going to need to click to bring the stroke to the front in order to change that stroke color. Let's go with like a pink. Again, it's a little bit harder to see on white, but it's going to look fine once we get it on black. So once we are kind of happy with our pattern, again, you're going to want to edit these in your swatches panel. It's when you click on it in this little window, it's going to add it to the your swatches, and that's where you're going to want to edit it. Once I'm ready, I'm going to hit done to overwrite my original swatch. And now you can see that we've added our lines to this. So we could actually add a couple of these shapes if we wanted to just kind of add a little bit of variation. I'm just going to add some really quickly. And then I'm going to use Shift to select all three. So I've got all these selected. They look okay, but let's also scale these up because they're quite thin and small. So with all three selected, you can modify all three at once by going to Transform and Scale and using the same process. Again, unchecking Transform Objects, so we're just transforming the patterns. And you can adjust this value kind of how you want. So you could go 200, 300, 400. It really just depends on the look you're kind of going for. And then once you're kind of satisfied with the size of the pattern, we're going to hit OK. And we can also make some adjustments to this, like a rotate. So we're going to go into transform. We're going to go into rotate. So if we wanted to just rotate these lines at an angle, so they're diagonal lines, you can go ahead and set the angle of rotation that you kind of want here. So maybe we want I think I had on 45. We'll go to 45. And again, it's important that you make sure transform patterns is checked. If you have transform objects checked, all of your objects are going to rotate. So you want to make sure that you have that transform patterns. And once you're kind of ready to share your work, actually, let me show you one more thing. If you wanted to put this behind your pattern, you can go to Object, Arrange, Send Backward, and that's going to put it behind our repeat. So you can add a little bit more depth to your design. But once you're ready to share this with our Discord, you're going to go to Export, Export for Screens, and you're either going to choose PNG or JPEG down here. You're going to export the artboard, so you're not going to get any of the overflow off of the artboard. And then you're going to go ahead and you're just going to upload it to our Discord by dragging that image into the Discord message space, and you can share it with everybody to get some feedback on your work. All right, so thank you so much for joining me for today's Illustrator Skills Challenge. It was definitely maybe a bit more skills. We went over pattern swatches, graphic styles, and the grid repeats. I hope you enjoyed this month's challenges, and there's even more. Yes, it's over already, Kevin. Believe it or not. But if you have any questions, go ahead and hop into that Discord. You can post them on the YouTube replay. But I hope you enjoyed this month's challenge, and there's even more live streams coming up. So stay right here, and I'll see everybody in the chat. Bye for now.